Hi, I'm Patrick, and my guest this month for the Media Commons front page survey on reblogging and authorship is Max Marshall. He was one of the curators, I guess is how you like to say it, of the Blog Reblog photo show that's cropped up a little bit this year. He's also a blogger over at Latent Image, which the URL for that is it just latent? It's latentimage.us.
Yeah.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself before we really jump into this, Max. How did this come about?
Basically, through my own blog called Latent Image, I had been participating in this online community of and photographers, through which I met the co-curator. His name's Paul Paper, and he runs a blog called I Like This Blog. And so he had featured me on his blog before, and he actually ran a show called Sraunus. I'm not even sure if that's how you say it, but throughout Europe. And it was a similar thing where he would pick photographers and he would have a slideshow presentation. So there's no physical prints. You're projecting images, and he had included me in that show. And that show traveled throughout Europe, and basically I jokingly was asking him one day, when is Sraunus coming to the US? And he said, well, why don't we do something together so we can create something new rather than just doing what he does. And basically came up with the idea. And just to explain the exhibition, so the way that it worked is that I chose 100 photographers and Paul chose 100 photographers. Then that list of 2 sets are randomly paired together. So say you and I are randomly paired together. I would send you the link for my, or I would give you my name and say, go find an image of mine, and I would do the same to you. We're both doing this blindly, so each of the artists are emailing with me and Paul, and basically at the very end of it, that's the 2 images that are shown side by side. So it's meant to mimic the process of online blogging and reblogging, which is why it's called that.
Right. Well, it sounds like a really intense project to coordinate with that many artists.
It was a lot of emails, and artists are not the best at email, so you had to kind of stay on them. But at the end, it's like a finished product ready to go. It premiered in Brooklyn in 2013. Then it just traveled to Austin over this summer with Austin Center for Photography. And then we're talking with a photography festival that's in Vancouver for 2015. So it continues to be shown.
Very cool. What was the reaction like from artists when you approached them about doing this, about having someone else choose their work to be shown in an exhibition?
It's a funny thing because artists very rarely have no say over what's in an exhibition, and so this is what made that special. But out of the people that we asked, maybe a small handful, 3 or 4 said no, like 1 or 2 didn't reply for whatever reason, but everyone was really supportive. So I think it speaks to the fact that we as photographers and artists who participate in this process already are open with it and feel comfortable of putting our trust into someone else's hands.
Yeah, it seems like that's a lot of where our influence on this our influences for coming up with this project this month have been, is that it seems that this is developed as a culture of sharing writing or photos or videos online, and then just allowing them to uh, propagate and just go everywhere outside of your control. Like,
Hmm.
how do you see things like reblogging complicating, like the ideas of your authorship or ownership over your work or other artists' work online?
Um, I mean, this process in this exhibition was meant to mimic that, and the way that the show ended up is that there are just images streaming by with no attribution itself. There's the list of photographers, but and like a small checklist at the front of the room or whatever. But as you're seeing the images flash by, they're on screen for maybe 10 or 12 seconds each, so it's kind of meant to imitate the pace at which you scroll through a Tumblr.
Oh.
Images are flashing by very quickly, well, relatively quickly to a stationary object in a room. Um, and yeah, it's just meant to mimic that scenario. But I think that artists willingly participate. When you put an image out, when I put an image out into the world, I accept the fact that anyone can do anything to it, and that's just the system that we're currently in. And a lot of this show had to do with community, and it came out of my community, and so there's a certain amount of trust that you put in one another. So when I'm blogging someone on my own blog, I always include their name. I always include a link to their site so they can, be promoted. I'm interested in building community.
So it seems that, yeah, the community aspect is a very important part of this new form of sharing art and media online. And have you ever experienced anything where there's been issues around attribution, or is it just one of those accepted things for artists online where it's once it's out there, and if you get credit, that's great, but otherwise, you just kind of have to accept that it's there.
There's definitely a certain amount of accepting. It would be a waste of your time to go out there and seek out every, person who misattributes your photo or doesn't give you any credit. It seems a bit petty, and I think, well, there are of course certain lines that are crossed, but I think as an artist in my position, I'm just happy that anyone would even want to share my photo. I'm happy that it's being put onto a different platform other than my own. So I'm willing to compromise certain things in order to share, because I wish to share my art with others.
And these platforms give you that ability to do it. Like, do you see, just as a general question, you see Tumblr as like the primary platform for this kind of thing right now, or?
Absolutely, and I think it's definitely the worst offender. I personally have stayed away from Tumblr. My own blog is on a third-party website where you cannot reblog it. You can't take an image out of the set of 5 images unless you're actually, of course you can save it and redo whatever you want on your own blog, but then at that point you're doing your own conscious decision to remove it from my site and put it onto your site, and you're treating it how you want it to be treated. So in that sense, I stay away from Tumblr for that reason, because I am trying to do the right thing for the artist.
Was there a certain, were you ever on Tumblr, or was it just one of those things where when it became a phenomenon, you made the decision that it wasn't the place you'd want to be with your work?
I've had a Tumblr years and years ago, but never for promoting other people's work. I just don't like the idea of an image being in a feed along with other images. I think that's problematic, the way that some people view Tumblr. Obviously, they're not going from link to link. It's feed-based. The same with Twitter, Facebook, but That's my own reason for not having a Tumblr platform.
So the issue's more about the way the experience works rather than like your control over your content.
Right, exactly.
That's interesting, because that's not an issue that I'd really thought about, because it does do that. When you scroll, everything just kind of zooms past you as you view it, so there's not really a lot of contemplation over what's happening.
Right, and I take a lot of care and spend a lot of time thinking about one post before next, the 5 images within that post, like the arc that I take over a week to a month, like what I'm trying to explore and expose and try to show everyone what's happening in the contemporary photography world now. And when you are removing that from its original platform, the message is automatically weakened.
Well, at this point, how do you see this, I guess, this arc of sharing online with photos? Do you see it as something that's going to continue on this trend with things like Tumblr? Do you hope to see it be more controlled in the future? What are you looking for going forward?
I think there will always be sharing platforms like this, and there will always be issues with authorship, but we as artists or photographers accept certain compromises, like I said before, and it's the ease of sharing also brings a lot of great things. An artist named David Brandon Geating has sort of mastered this art of Tumblr and promoting certain images that are like blog worthy or whatever kind of like trendiness, but his work isn't. I don't want to say trendy, and people say that his work is trendy in that way, but he has used this Tumblr system to great success. He's become immensely popular, and now he's getting commercial photo gigs. He's having exhibitions of his own, so it's not always a bad thing. It's just I see them as two separate things, both coexisting, for better or for worse.
Well, those are all the questions I have for you right now. Do you have any final thoughts before we go that you'd like to share, or anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we go?
No, just thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting to bring Blog Reblog and contemporary photography content to a different area of the web.
Yeah.
So I'm very thankful for that.
Well, I thank you for joining me, and I was really excited when I saw the project, and I thought it fit perfectly with the kind of stuff that we're looking to do.
Great.
So appreciate it, and Max Marshall, everybody, thank you, and you have a good afternoon.
Thank you so much.